Hey everyone, in this video I wanted to go over the first response you will be writing on Beowulf that is due this Sunday by 11:59 p.m. So the responses are short essays basically, 450 to 600 words. We're looking at, you know, uh, between 1 to 2 pages. About a page and a half is, roughly about as much writing as I want. So, so we're not looking to say everything there is to be said about Beowulf. Uh, the focus here is on depth and analysis. Your ability to give, to really explain the significance of the details that you see in the epic. So I just wanted to go over the assignment, hopefully clarify a few things. So the Old English literary style of Beowulf is famous for its use of kennings, metaphorical terms used in place of a common noun. So, for example, saying whale rode instead of the sea. So there's a lot of examples of this in Beowulf. What I want you to do in your first response is to take a kenning that is used in Beowulf and that you think has a larger significance to the poem, right? So if you think that, for example, whale rode is an image that has a significance to the story of the epic, either in terms of what happens, in terms of some of its themes, like the themes of heroism, or or of power, of courage, then destiny. If you think that you can, by explaining this kenning and the image of this kenning, you can then explain something significant about the poem itself, about the epic itself, then that's an example you should use. So, whale road is not necessarily, I don't necessarily want you to write about whale road. There's a lot of options. And we'll look at some of the options in a few minutes. But your response should explain why this kenning has a larger significance by analyzing two moments and quotations from the text, okay, that you think demonstrate the ideas or associations, the symbolism of the kenning. Okay, two moments should not include the kenning, but demonstrate its importance. All right, so I'm not looking for two other examples of the kenning, but two moments that allow you to explain why this kenning has a deeper significance to the epic. All right, your response should be between 450 words and contain 4 paragraphs. So before I go on, let's look at some more kennings. Okay, so if I go down back down to resources, so I have a website that gives a list of the many kennings used in the poem. All right, and I suggest using one of these. If you feel like you're comfortable identifying kennings and you see another one you want to use, that's fine. But let's go ahead and go to this site and take a look. So she, I don't know her, but she explains, M.E. Bond, explains, gives a little bit of background on the kennings, but for our purposes, gives us a long list. All right. Ring giver, treasure giver, gold giver, homeland's guardian, guardian of the ring hoard, shepherd of people, and hopefully, if that first example I gave of whale road didn't seem too obvious, as you start looking at more of these, you can start seeing how there are connections between what is expressed in the kenning and what we see in the epic. So, if you chose, for example, shepherd of people, right, then your response might try to explain, like, well, what does it mean to be a shepherd of people? Like, what is choosing that to describe a king? What does that tell us about what the epic presents us as, what it means to be a king, right? What does it mean to be a shepherd of people? And then how do we see any examples of that idea of what it means to be a shepherd of people in the epic? And that's essentially what you're doing. Going down, there's, and she does a nice job of sort of explaining what, what is being described. Hall Watcher, Corpse Maker, these are kennings used to describe Grendel. Shadow Stalker, Hell Brute. If you're interested in the religious imagery and the religious themes in the epic, something like Hell Brute obviously has religious connotations. That might be something you would want to explore, as does Hell Bride to describe Grendel's mother. We didn't read the part with the dragon, but if you wanted to use one of these kennings, if you feel like it's relevant to what we read in the first section of the epic, then you and so she goes on. There's a long list here, so it shouldn't be hard, I think, to find something here where you read the kenning and you think, that actually sort of reminds me of other things that I think are important to the epic. And so this is an interesting symbol of some of the epic's important themes, right? Once you've found a kenning that you like, all right, so let's say Sky Plague. I'm just choosing a random one. All right, what I can then do, if I go back to our links, I also put in a link for the text of the epic online. And the nice thing about this is if I do a search, Control F or Command F if you're using an Apple computer, okay, I can put Sky Plague in, and it's supposed to work. I didn't choose a great example. Oh, I need to match whole. Let's try this. Whole words. Okay, let me try another example. Then Sky Plague. They're supposed to be from the. This is supposed to be all from the same translation. So this before to make sure it works. Let's try Scourge of the People. Sometimes differences in spelling or with a hyphen can make a difference. So let's try this. Scourge of the People. See, it came up right away. So I just picked a bad apple. Scourge of the People. So here's our example, right? And so you can see what line it's in. You can go back and find it and and cite it correctly in your essay. All right. So that was my thinking in terms of because I know it's not necessarily easy to go back and remember all the kennings, but you've got a list, you got a means to find your kenning within the poem. And then so once you've done so, you can begin mapping out your essay. So giving you an organization that I'd like you to use. It's such a short essay that I'm very specific in how I structure it. So give me an introduction at the beginning, 100 to 150 words. Introduce the kenning, right? So like like what is the kenning? What is it describing? Like what is the example? How is it being used? What is happening in this moment of the epic? And then why does this kenning have a larger significance to the poem? All right, so you're just basically just giving the overview in paragraph 1. Paragraph 2, and 3, you are focusing on your quotation. So give context for a quotation that demonstrates the significance. I want at least 3 sentences of context before you give your quotation. So what context does is explain, think of it like, like what is happening at this moment of the epic, right? You've taken this quotation out, and so what do we need to know to understand this quotation? And what is happening? Why is it being said? What is it describing? All that is context, okay? And then after the quotation, you give your analysis, and the analysis here is just explaining, why is this quote, basically explaining why you chose this quotation, right? I don't want you to say I chose this quotation because, but you explain why this quotation demonstrates the significance of the kenning, right? Why is this relevant to the kenning you chose? Paragraph 3 does that for a second quotation, all right? And then paragraph 4 is your conclusion, all right? So brief statement, as you see the conclusion, I'm not looking for a long conclusion here. 50 to 100 words. So, so probably 2 to 3 sentences, honestly. Explain, what should the reader take away from this essay? That's how you should always think about your conclusion. Like what do you want, the reader to, understand about, what you're trying to say to them and why it's important. So I've already talked about the resources, the 2 sources. So jumping down to citations. Oh, let me cover this though. So I do not want you to use any other sources or study guides for this assignment. So I do not want you to go to SparkNotes, LitCharts, etc. I don't want you to attempt to quote or paraphrase from these sources. If you do, there will be an automatic point reduction. Plagiarism will result in a grade of 0. So, I don't want, I want you to avoid the temptation of just sort of jumping onto these sites and trying to use them for your analysis in this assignment. You should be able to do this without that. You should be able to look at a kenning like Shepherd of the People and think about what that means, what it means to be a shepherd, explain what that means, and explain, how that applies to the poem. Is the image we get of being a king, being a shepherd to the people? Is that, is that consistent with what we see in the epic? All right. So I don't want you to bring in any other sources. I don't want you to get background about the poem, about the epic, or get into any of those issues. This is all just about you and Beowulf, right? Beowulf the epic. So for citations, cite Beowulf just as you did in the discussion question assignment. You should be able to go in. I'll make that assignment available to you so you can go in and see the examples I gave of the citations. I don't want you to explain what a kenning is or give any general background on the use of kennings or historical background of Beowulf, as I said before. You're just using this kenning to give a close reading of the text. So formatting and submission, we're using MLA format. Okay, and I've given a template for that. It should all be double-spaced. Heading and works cited included. Works cited should have a hanging indentation. Okay, that's in the template. So the first line is not indented. The second line is. Use 12-point Times New Roman font. I want you to use second person, or sorry, avoid second person. So don't use you, your, yours, etc. All right. Responses generally should be written in third person. There may be some responses where it's appropriate to write in first person. To be honest, I don't really think it's appropriate for this one. So, I would keep this one in third person. Your submission must be in Microsoft Word. Okay, you have a free Office 365 account that you can access through GTC for me. So if, for example, you were to log in to GTC for me, you see the screen, Office 365 is right next to Blackboard. Okay, and if you click that, you can access your account. Otherwise, if you do, if you're using like Google Docs or Pages, which is what we have with, those are not compatible with Blackboard. You have to convert them to Microsoft Word, and you can do a Google search and easily find out how to convert it. It's not hard. The complete file should be uploaded to Blackboard. So do not send me a link to your document, and don't send me a link to your Google Docs or your share drive for Office 365. You need to download the file to your computer, upload the file to Blackboard. All right. So if you've submitted the document correctly, you should be able to see and read the full response within the Blackboard screen. Okay. Kind of like I'm reading this, prompt within this screen right here. So there's a smaller window, and within that window you see your essay. So if you don't see your essay, if your document is not visible, and I don't mean the name of the document, I mean the full document, right? You can actually read your essay within Blackboard. If you cannot do that, email it to me. All right, so it's your responsibility to ensure that your document has been submitted correctly. Just because it says success doesn't necessarily mean it's in there. If you cannot read it within Blackboard, then email it to me. All right, so if I don't have the file by the due date, then then at that point it's late, and if there's not a valid excuse, then it's not going to be accepted. So if you have any doubt, I'd rather you do it correctly and email it to me too than do it incorrectly and not email it to me. So if you have any doubt, just send me an email with the document. That's fine. Okay. Do not email me though just to tell me that you're having trouble with attaching it. Okay. Or I'm having trouble getting into Blackboard. All right. Email me the file. I mean, you can email me that too, but email me the document. Okay, you have to find a way to get it to me. All right, if you're having trouble with Blackboard, get it to me through the email. All right. Okay, so that's it for this video. If you have questions about the assignment, you can send me an email or you can post those questions to the Padlet. The link for that is still in the announcements, and I will try to address those questions. Okay, thank you.